Hello, everyone. Warm welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. My name is Samantha from Safeopedia, and it's our mission to support you, the EHS professionals, operational folks, and any safety-minded individuals with free safety information, tools, and education. I want to give you a huge thank you for being here today and, of course, keeping our workplaces safe on a daily basis. Today, we are proud to present Breathing Easy Respiratory Protection in Chemical Manufacturing. The Safeopedia webinar has been made possible today by PIP Global Safety, a preferred manufacturer member of 80 Safety Network. 80, together we win. Today, we join the North Respiratory Expert, Andy Morgan, and he is going to help you learn more about respirable hazards and the safety solutions you need to protect you and others on the job site. I'm very excited to have you all sit back and relax. So with that, Andy, let's jump into it.
Oh, thank you, Samantha. I appreciate the warm welcome, and as Samantha said, I thank everybody for taking time out of your day to join us today. I know you, as EHS professionals, are super busy and have a lot of things going on, so it's awesome that you took time to go through. And I think that you're going to be pleased with the information that we bring to the table, and we'll give you some good tidbits and some good takeaways that you can use in the field. So. As Samantha mentioned, my name is Andy Morgan. I'm the National Respiratory Sales Manager for North Respiratory in the US and Canada. For you EHS professionals that have been doing this for a while, you may be, or I'm sure you are familiar with the North Respiratory brand. What you may be a little confused about is the PIP Global Safety. So about 3 months ago, Honeywell Safety Products, or HSP as we're referred to now, which would be your North Respiratory, Miller Fall Protection, Uvex Eyewear. Those legacy brands were purchased by PIP Global Safety, so we're now all part of what we're referring to is PIP Global Safety. So we're super excited to be over there, and hopefully you guys as well kind of combine forces to some really great PPE manufacturers rather. So let's jump into this, guys. Hey, the agenda today obviously is going through chemical manufacturing, so we're going to kind of have just a general overview about some of the hazards and some of the things to watch out for in that particular vertical. We'll take a look at respiratory, or do a deep dive on respiratory. So look at some of the standards. Not going to get super heavy. Don't worry. And if it's after lunch, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of OSHA regulations, but we will touch base on that. Kind of go into some discovery questions. There's just things to consider, and then we'll talk about HSV support, and then have a little bit of Q&A at the end. So save your questions or put them in the chat, and then we'll go through those as we wrap up. So, all right, so we jump in. One of the important things to keep in mind when we start talking about PPE is that's really the last line of defense. So as you guys are in your manufacturing facilities or locations, that I'm sure you've seen this before, but as we go through like the hierarchy of controls, the thought process around it is, what can we do before we get to the PPE? And that's the same for the respiratory products that we're talking about today. So obviously, can we eliminate the hazard? Can we use a different chemical, or completely remove that chemical from the equation? Can you substitute it out to where perhaps maybe it's a different chemical that doesn't carry the respiratory concern? Engineering controls like air dampers, vac systems, things like that. Administrative controls. If you know that your time weighted average is a certain level, perhaps you can move that individual around to where they're not hitting that time weighted average, or maybe below a threshold where they have to implement a PPE as a level of control, and then obviously PPE being your last line of defense. So lots of chemical manufacturing in and of itself is a bit different, or I guess a bit broad. So we want to kind of just point out, where we classify this, at least from our end. So that could be, just general chemical manufacturing, DuPonts of the world, things like that are actually mixing hazardous chemicals or master batching, things like that. Food and beverage, chemical manufacturing, if it's very specific, say like a pesticide or something like that. Pharmaceuticals, those are kind of your general areas. And then we also have solutions for your controlled chemical manufacturing environments, like nuclear, semiconductors, or biotechnical, biohazard labs, things like that. So um, let's talk about why we're focusing on respiratory, or why are we talking about this at all. Obviously, as part of being an EHS professional for a chemical manufacturing facility, or really any facility, if there's respiratory hazard, there's a need to protect the employees. These are the 2024 statistics for OSHA citations, or OSHA write-ups, and respiratory is number 7. I think they're actually probably going to creep into the top 5, which is usually about where they are. So that being said, this is obviously a concern, or a point, that OSHA takes a pretty heavy look at, just to make sure that that your people are properly protected, especially when faced with respiratory hazards in that area, or in the work environment. The top 5 reasons why respiratory is cited. So within the 2,481, the top 5 reasons why they were cited was medical evaluations. So was the employee properly, did they go through the proper medical evaluation process to make sure that they're actually healthy enough to wear respiratory equipment before they're put into it? Written respiratory program, is it robust enough? Does it include all the information that you have to have in it? Do you even have one at all? Properly outlining voluntary use programs, and where they can be used. Fit testing requirements, are they doing it as frequently and as often as they need to? And then properly outlining your fit testing. So are you using qualitative fit testing, quantitative fit testing? And we'll get more into some of those things as we move forward. So let's jump into the deep dive. So there's some things to be aware of as you're choosing your respiratory equipment, is a couple different things. So compliance is obviously across the board. If you have a respiratory hazard, the same as a fall hazard, or a flying object hazard, you really need to be in a scenario where it's compliant. So where the thought process or the choice comes into play is, any PPE, any respiratory equipment that we talk about is going to provide the same level of protection. Obviously, the cartridges change depending on what the hazard is, but from a choice standpoint, it's okay. Do I need just a value offering, like a TPE mask that's a little less expensive, because my employees are only using it, say maybe once a day? That would be more of kind of the compliance. I just really need something to make sure that my people are properly protected. Functionality and comfort. We all have different sizes of faces, different sizes and shapes of faces. So, we as a PPE manufacturer offer a wide variety of both half mask and full face masks, because there's not really say a cookie cutter option. So just kind of keep that in mind. Function and comfort is, hey, I use the example of maybe like a TPE value mask, uh, which TPE is thermoplastic elastomer, sorry. But rather than using a value mask, are they in this mask for say 8-10 hours a day? Do we need to move to something that's a little more comfortable, like a silicone mask or something? Do my people need to be able to clearly communicate with their other coworkers? So do we need to add a speech diaphragm to the mask? Just kind of understanding the total environment, and your employees, and how often they're going to use it, and what may work best for you. And then obviously, we always have to consider the financial concerns around choosing the proper protection for your program. So some questions that, I guess, research questions, or some things to keep in mind. Some things that I ask when I'm on site is, what reoccurring high risk behaviors do you see in your employees or in the workers? That could be things like, we're in a value mask or an inexpensive mask, so it's not super comfortable. So maybe when it gets hot and sweaty, I'm sliding it around. If I slide it around, that breaks the seal. That would be a high risk behavior. What contaminants are present? So as I mentioned before, as a respiratory manufacturer, we offer a wide variety of chemical and particulate cartridges that would protect or help protect against that contaminant that's present in the environment. what's the level of the contaminant. That really helps you pinpoint, okay, if I understand my exposure level, then I understand what's the proper solution. Is that an APR mask? Is it, a PAPR? Does that go into continuous flow supplied air, or maybe even an SCBA, depending on what the environment looks like. And the last point's really more from kind of a seller question for me, to be able to look at it and say, okay, well, what are you currently wearing, both mask and cartridge, and that helps me determine, okay, well, is this a good fit? But then I can also look at it and say, okay, well, maybe we can look at some gaps in that program that maybe haven't been discussed. So. Hazard exposure level, again, not going to get super deep into OSHA guidelines, but essentially what this says is that as an employee, or if you have a respiratory hazard, you need to understand what that hazard is and what the exposure is to the employees. Back to my earlier comment, by your air monitoring or air sampling data, which can be done through your uh, uh, workman's comp insurance companies usually have IHs on staff. Some manufacturers actually sell equipment that you can have on staff, but it's super important just to know, what that contaminant is, and then what level of the exposure is. Again, that helps you determine a lot of things. What's the proper PPE to wear, what's the proper cartridge to wear, and then as a manufacturer, also helps me determine, what your change out schedule is if you're looking at, an APR mask or cartridges. So. Um, so when you start selecting or choosing the proper PPE, and again, it's kind of just a bit redundant, but understanding the hazards, understanding the atmospheric conditions, and then also understanding the application requirements. Again, like, do I have two-way radios? Do I need to be able to communicate? That type of thing. As far as an application goes. So one of the things that I use quite frequently, and you can as well, any say out of the box chemical, maybe that you're using or maybe that you're producing, is going to have a very specific active ingredient to it, if you will. So benzene obviously is a very hazardous chemical. I like to use this as an example just to show you, as a resource. The NIOSH Pocket Guide can be a wealth of information. So this would be, that there's an active ingredient. You can go to Google and say, benzene or ammonia, and NIOSH Pocket Guide, and this is what'll come up. So this is the NIOSH and OSHA recommendations for proper protection. And as you can see here, if you're over that time weighted average exposure limit of 1 ppm for benzene, they're saying that you have to be in an SCBA. So at that point in time, that's very costly. So then you would look at, hey, can we use say a back system, or remove this? Can we take it out? Obviously, just from a financial standpoint. But the NIOSH Pocket Guide is a wealth of knowledge. The other thing would be just on page 8 of, so if it's an out of the box chemical that you're using in that facility, page 8 of any SDS sheet will show you, is there a respiratory hazard? What's the active ingredient? What's the typical exposure? That type of thing. So I mentioned earlier just about being able to understand what your change out schedule is through being your air sampling, and knowing what's the exposure level. So that really ties into chemical cartridges. So the diagram really like to use up here in the top right hand corner. Is essentially a side-by-side cutout of what a chemical cartridge looks like. So if you can imagine a mask on the other end of this, filtered air, if I'm aware in a facility or in an environment that has a respiratory hazard or chemical hazard, what I'm pulling in being a negative air. So negative air means I'm breathing. My lungs are doing the work, versus say like a positive air, which would be a PAPR. But that's pulling the ambient air in, and it's drawing through that charcoal bed. So within a chemical cartridge contains charcoal that's specifically designed for that hazard. So we have a very specific organic vapor cartridge, and we have an acid gas cartridge, and we have a cartridge that takes care of ammonia and mercury. All of them are designed to filter that contaminant out, and then supply clean air for the individual to breathe. Well, what comes into play with that carbon is as soon as that carbon is used or has been completely not depleted, but the active ingredients has been used because it has filtered out that contaminant, then it needs to be thrown away. So that's a very long way to say that if you're doing your air monitoring, then you would understand how long your chemical cartridges last. So that would be, these chemical versus say like a particulate cartridge. If you're in a P100, that's just when, breathing resistance gets heavy. But there's a couple different types of chemicals that we talk about, or chemical contaminants would be gases and vapors. So gases would be things like hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide. Vapors would be things like solvents and gasoline. Both of them are covered within the chemical background. So if you were using any of these things, you would know, okay, well, I need to go to a chemical cartridge and not just a particulate. I mentioned a couple of times just about the OSHA color coding system. So this is just a kind of a side by side of it. So this is, or I'm sorry, NIOSH color coding system. Forgive me. So this is consistent across the board, whether it's us or say 3M or Moldex or MSA. Uh, if it's a chemical cartridge, it has a black. It has a black sticker on the side, and then it'll obviously, kind of point that out. So this is dictated again by NIOSH. Black is your organic vapors, white's going to be most of your acid gas, yellow is both organic vapors and acid gas, and then green is going to be your ammonium methylamine, and then olive is this color, which is just kind of a catch-all. This particular cartridge right here is actually a mercury cartridge, and it is the only cartridge that NIOSH requires there be a filter load indicator on it. So you see this kind of white yellowish band right there. If you're working in an environment that contains mercury and you're wearing this cartridge, that band will slowly turn to black. NIOSH has required that just because mercury is such a hazardous chemical, can be, fatal if exposed to over time. So they actually require us to do that as a manufacturer. That is the only cartridge that they require. So unfortunately, if you're using anything else, you would have to be, on top of your air sampling to understand what your change out schedule will be. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see that the magenta or pink top, that just signifies that it's a particulate. So if you're in an environment that both has a chemical hazard and a particulate hazard, this is a solution for you that would protect your employees from both. Some of the compliance pain points that we notice when working inside the field is, lack of training on the PPE. I think that ties back into some of the OSHA concerns, or the write-ups that they had that falls into the respiratory as a vertical or as a hazard. So, lack of training. Do your employees understand, when and where these need to be used? Do they understand, proper clean or proper care and maintenance of the mask? Do they know how to inspect it? Lack of medical evaluations. Again, if you hire a new employee to come on board, they have to be medically cleared, and what that does is just make sure that they're healthy enough to wear respiratory, and then obviously you have to go through the fit testing process and all of that. So just making sure the individuals are medically cleared. One of the things that we're often asked is, what's the stance of OSHA around medical evaluations, MEQs, medical evaluation questionnaires? So it's really kind of a gray area for them. What they say is essentially, once someone's been medically cleared, if they stay within say I go to work for DuPont at 18 and retire at 60. As long as I don't have like a health issue like a heart attack or a car wreck or something that may negatively impact my pulmonary health, then I don't need to be medically cleared. That's what OSHA says, that there's really, it's kind of a gray area. There's not a lot of guidelines around that. As a manufacturer, we say, kind of best practice to do that every year or every other year, just to stay on top of it, which I'm sure you guys are. But improper respiratory protection program, or so improper fit testing, essentially, are you doing it? Are you doing it, as often as you need to be doing? Kind of all of this falls into, one of the things that, that was part of the top five is training on that, which, should recur annually, getting ahead of ourselves on support that we can provide. But that, if you're in North Respiratory, that's absolutely something that we can assist you with. We actually just did a month or so ago, went in and developed a training for a specific end user and trained on their material and their equipment, walked their employees through, when and where to use it, how to clean it, how to take care of it, all of that stuff, how to don and doff it, which is, required as part of the written respiratory program. So, functionality and comfort questions that you can think about, in the back of your mind again as you go through selection is just, how long are you wearing the face pieces? If it's, a few minutes here and there, you got to go turn a valve and move away. I don't think material is a super is super important, or maybe not a pain point for you, versus, if it's something that you have to wear all day, maybe we look at comfort material like a silicone or something like that. How often are you wearing it again? Kind of mentioned that. If it's not very often, then maybe a thermoplastic elastomer or a TPE would work for you versus, say, like a silicone mask. Is facial hair an issue? So, part of the standard for tight fitting face pieces is that the individuals have to be clean shaven. If that's an issue for you, then you would need to move to, a loose fitting hood that would be in, like, say, a PAPR, a powered air purifying respirator, or like a continuous flow supplied air situation, if you can't get the employees to shave. And then, historical issues, do you have someone with issues of getting fit tested? There's some things that we can do around size and shape of the mask and material as well. I've mentioned this a couple times before, just online medical evaluation questionnaire. So this is not our program. It's a third-party service that we go through called Rest Safety. It's a very robust program that's more than just medical evaluation questionnaires. It's also a repository for all of your written respiratory program documents. So within this, you can get your employees medically cleared, but um, you can also house all your fit testing data. It gives you reminders of when people may need to be medically cleared again. If you have, a cadence, we mentioned that before. It will give you reminders of, when people need to be fit tested. But the cool part about this program is it's all online, so you can set it up in kiosk mode to where they do it in your office. You can send them a link so they can do it at home. There's a QR code mode so they can do it on their phone, type of thing. But the nice part about this program is that it being all online, they can do it at the facility and they don't have to go see a physician, which saves you time and money. And this is the SKU that we sell there. If you're interested in, we'd love to have one of our sellers reach out to you and give you a little more information on it. So that's medical evaluation questionnaires. So let's get into fit testing again. The medical evaluation process is just making sure that people are healthy enough to wear masks. Once they've done that, I've been cleared. Andy, I'm part of the program. I get medically cleared. I'm healthy enough to wear them. Now I have to go through the fit testing process before I can actually wear them to do my job. So the purpose of fit testing, fairly obvious, is just making sure that the respirator fits. Again, we talked about, playing around with size, shape, material, all of that thing. So the requirements around that, medical evaluation questionnaires, we've kind of belabored that point. You may not have anything that interferes with the face seal or the valve function. So that would be, facial hair. Like I have prescription eyewear on. We actually make insert lenses, if the individual needed a full face mask, which we would use, if there's, like a chemical spray hazard or something that impacts the eyes, as well as the respiratory system. One piece of equipment going to a full face mask versus, say goggles or something like that. But we make inserts that they can fill the prescription in, and then they can wear that underneath their mask. Because if I have a seal here, obviously that doesn't seal because the temples of my glasses are there. We talked about shaving. Normal PPE has to be worn during the fit test. So if your individuals are wearing earmuffs or have even eyewear or hard hats, anything like that, have to be worn during the test as well. again, what we're doing is making sure that it fits in all of those environments that they may be subject to. So as far as frequency goes, it has to be initial and annual. I have, excuse me, I've been hired by you as an employee. I need to be a part of the respiratory program. So that's the initial piece. And then every year after that, I would also have to be fit tested. The other frequency would be any time that the style, size, shape, material, any of that, if that changes, or even manufacturer changes. So even if you're in a respirator and you're medically cleared on, say, like our fifth, or I'm sorry, you've been fit tested on like our 5500. If you went to our 7700, which they're identical masks, I'll point that out in a minute, but you've changed the material, so now you have to be refit tested on it. Or if you change manufacturers, so if you did something ridiculous like moving from North to, say, one of our competitors, then they would have to be refit tested. Any changes to the facial features. So, if there was an unfortunate situation with a car wreck where maybe you have a scar or something like that, dentures, that's another one. Weight loss, weight gain, that type of thing. And then part of the fit testing piece is also record keeping, and we provide that as well, assistance with fit testing and with record keeping. The different types of fit testing, so we kind of covered that at the very beginning. On the left-hand side, you'll see the quantitative fit testing. That should be qualitative. I'm sorry. These are mixed match. So the methods for qualitative fit testing would be oh, that's on the right hand side. I should look at it better. So qualitative fit testing is going to be things like bitters or saccharin or irritant smoke. The reason why we offer three, or why there are three options there, really a couple reasons. One, if you were to be fit testing on N95s, the only thing that you can use is bitters or bitrix and saccharin. That's required. Irritant smoke you can use for any tight fitting face piece. The reason why there's several different options, there's things like if I have an employee that's a heavy smoker, they may not react to the stannate chloride or that irritant smoke. If they had, say, like a sweet tooth or something, they may not react to saccharin. Same kind of the same way with bitters. So that's kind of the qualitative fit testing. On the left hand side with the quantitative fit testing is where you get into like the TSI port accounts and things like that. It's just a more calculated numerical way to fit test. The benefit for quantitative fit testing is that it provides a higher APF on full face masks only. So if you're in a full face piece and that has a standard APF of 10, you can get to 50 by using a quantitative fit test. The other thing that I've actually been asked before too is, some people, unfortunately, if they had COVID multiple times, or maybe experiencing a spell of long COVID, they've almost permanently lost their sense of taste and smell. So qualitative fit testing does not work. You would have to use a port account in that particular scenario. Let's go through the half mask family. I don't want to be super salesy, just want to give you guys some option, or give you guys some ideas of what we offer. Again, I kind of mentioned the 5500 and the 7700. So these are identical masks, actually the same mold. The only difference is this is our value mask in that thermoplastic elastomer. This would be the compliance mask. Hey, I don't need to wear it very often. I just need to protect my employees. That's great for that. If you have issues with getting people fit tested, I always recommend going to something like our 7700, which would be like a really soft silicone mask. The other benefits to silicone is that it actually adheres better to the face in high heat environments. So if I'm working in a hot, sweaty environment, I'm sweating a lot, that with a TPE mask, it'll tend to slide around, or can, whereas the silicone, it actually kind of adheres to the face a little better and creates a better seal. I get asked quite a bit, do you offer an extra large or an extra small mask? No, we don't, but nobody manufactures one, not in a traditional sense. But like at our RU 8800 here, the small is very small. It almost acts like an extra small. And then our medium large, because of the footprint, the way it wraps around the cheeks, it actually kind of acts like an extra large. And then the top right hand corner is going to be our RU 8500. That funny thing that's sticking out front is actually a Kapton speech diaphragm. It doesn't amplify the voice, but it provides some clarification. So if you're working in a situation or working in an environment where there's loud machinery going on, but you also have to communicate via two-way radio, that capped on speech diaphragm can be very, very beneficial for you. Into the full face family, from kind of a good, better, best, if you will. I mean, they're all good, but just from an offering, notice that gray, that's going to be your TPE. This is kind of a compliance mask. Only comes in two sizes. The RE6500 is really what I kind of lean to, just because it comes in three sizes. It's that silicone mask. It has a nice field of vision, and then into the 7600. If you were having trouble getting people fit tested on either of these full face masks, this has a triple seal on it, or triple flange seal on it. So it works really, really well to get people fit tested if you're having issues with that. And then also, it comes with that speech diaphragm that I mentioned in the half mask family before. So just functionality, some of the pain points. We really kind of went over this before, so I'm not gonna belabor the point. But just understanding, what are your employees' comfort needs and requirements in the environment? Are they wearing it less frequent or more frequent? Do they need to be able to communicate, that type of thing? Um, this is just something to kind of keep in mind. Lean into your distributor partners for inventory management. I think all of them have that, especially with, how our masks are set up. Cartridges can be vended. Some of our half masks can be vended if you're in that solution. We also see, where our like more expensive PPE, like full face pieces, would be put in like an asset management locker or something like that. We talked about change out schedule. I'm not going to go through that again. If there are questions, I can field those before, but I think we've kind of covered that. Um, you know, just understanding, how robust, how big is your written respiratory program? What do you need to do there? And then what are your budgetary goals? PPE, whether it's fall protection or gloves or glasses. Gloves can be different based on cut level, but you know you kind of set where your protection needs to be, and then above and beyond that, expense comes with comfort. And we do that through different sizes and shapes and respiratory, similar to what you would see in like eyewear or something like that. So financial pain points, obviously, understanding, what drives that high volume. Do you properly understand your change out schedule, things like that? Is the PPE that you're wearing, less durable? Is there a better name brand out there that you can go to that may be a little more durable, especially for how often somebody might be wearing it. We I did throw this in there that Honeywell HSD, we do offer samples. So if you're like Andy, I'm having trouble getting this person fit tested, but I don't want to buy a $200 full face mask. We'll provide samples and see if it works, and if it works, then you can buy it from your distributor after the fact. And then another a big financial pain point, and this is really for all PPE, but does certainly apply to respiratory, is your worker turnover. So are you wearing a value mask that's being or offering a value mask that's being worn for multiple hours a day, and it's just not super comfortable, and maybe employees are frustrated through that process. So support for you guys and our distributor partners across the board. We have respiratory specialists that dotted throughout U.S. and Canada. You have myself. That can jump out in the field. Some of the ways that we can support you is, again, through training. We can walk you through our medical evaluation program or third-party program. We can do train the trainer on fit testing. We can do hazard analysis and things like that as a value-added services, which is kind of the next point. The Honeywell field support we have. Including specialists, we've got about 60 sellers throughout the U.S. and Canada that can also provide on-site support for you in the event that I'm not able to join. And then we have a best partner portal that you can go through. That's more for that's probably more for the distributor side. But our website is a great wealth of knowledge, whether you want to just find out more about what we offer, um, tech data sheets, that type of thing, are found all on there. Um, we I kind of got into the field seller map again. 60 sellers dotted throughout the U.S. If you're working with a particular distributor, we work with all of them. All the nationals, and even have programs for the regionals. So no concern there. If you're interested in moving to North Respiratory, we sell through all of those channels. We do not sell direct to end users. We work through our distributor customers to provide that. And with that, we can assist them on the financial side. So whether that's price deviations because you're going through a high volume of equipment, that type of thing. And then also myself is kind of a wealth of knowledge for you as well. So that concludes our training, and I know we sped through that, so we've got quite a bit of time to go through questions. So Samantha, I'm going to stop sharing. Well, no, I'll keep this page up.
Keep it
I'll
up. Let
open
the
it up to
people know
you.
your
Yeah.
email so they can get in
Oh,
touch with
yeah,
you
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so email address is there. Feel free to reach out to me. So if there's anything that we covered today that you're interested in having, more in-depth information on, or maybe you just have a question that you don't feel comfortable asking in this environment, I'm really happy to support you in any way possible. So we'll leave this up, and then Samantha, I'll let you take it up if there's, questions that are in the chat, or however you want to do that.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, as per usual, Andy, I think you did a really good job of giving us an in-depth and also succinct look at all of our processes. So we don't have any questions right now. So while we're waiting for some questions to come in, Andy, I want to throw it back to you. Is there anything you want our audience to take away from today to keep top of mind so that they can be successful in their respiratory journey?
Yeah, so I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that as professionals, and I do it myself too. I'm like, I can't ask that question because I should know the answer. I would say just ask questions, be super curious, dive into these things, and fully understand, whether it's fully understand, what needs to be in your respiratory program, what your options are available, how to protect your employees, which I know is top of mind for everybody on this call. I would say, lean into either me as the manufacturer or our HSP, PIP sellers. They can be of assistance to you. Almost every major distributor, Fastenal, Granger, Airgas, they offer, a safety specialist team that would love to come on site. And assist you as well. So I would just say, reach out if you need help. We put respiratory in a high risk category versus say like, eyewear and things like that. If my employees aren't wearing the proper cut level of a glove, maybe there's a situation where they have, a laceration that requires stitches or something like that. But, respiratory hazards, can either harm or be fatal immediately, or like in the case of say silica or something like that, that's something that harms you long term over time. There's no immediate, oh, I feel sick or I'm hurt, like you would in a fall or a cut. So, understanding how to properly protect your employees from day one is paramount in all situations. And because respiratory can be complex, we're here to offer solutions and assistance. So that was a really long-winded answer to your question, Samantha.
No, I loved it. That was great. Our audience is fully tuned in, so they're loving it.
Yeah.
All right, our first question is when using full face, maybe you mentioned it, but what type of cartridge should you be using for mold removal?
The majority of mold is going to be a particulate, so a P100 is going to work. Where you want to be careful with mold is so the removal and the remediation of it. I mean, even black mold again in itself is a particulate. The challenge that you may have when removing that, or so you've removed the mold, but now you have to clean the area, and the cleaning process may be where you're going to see the chemical hazard. And that's where I would say rely on either us or your distributor partners to determine, what is the chemical aspect of that spray or cleaner that you need to protect against. You can also find it on page 8 again of the SDS sheet, and that kind of blinds out too. Or they may say, hey, you know, if you mix it to this level and you're spraying like this, maybe there isn't a chemical hazard. Obviously, that changes a lot too if we're talking about, say, like open air environments versus, you know, a closed room or something like that. So, long answer is P100. Unless you're spraying chemicals, then you would want to look at a chemical cartridge.
Okay, fantastic. Our
Yep.
next question. Is there an online service life estimator for respirator cartridges? They want to know if they can see how long a cartridge will be good for based on contaminant, temperature, work rate, etc.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, HSV does offer a tool. Right now, it's internal only because we've been doing some revamp, uh, just some updating. So it's technically like a quote unquote beta version right now. Once it's completed, which I think will be either at the end of this year or first of next year, it will be a situation where it'll be, you know, like on the APR page of our website where it's very much customer facing. You can log in, you know, click on the link and go through that process of, okay, I'm using an organic vapor acid gas cartridge, and here's the contaminant. This is the exposure level. This is how hard my employees breathing or working. This is how hot it is, or, you know, the ambient temperature, humidity, all of those things go into play uh, to that tool. So the long answer is yes, we have that. The kind of the tricky part is it's not customer facing right now. So whoever asked that question, if you're using our cartridge currently and you would like me to determine that, shoot me an email and I just have a couple of questions again around like contaminant concentration, how hard they're working, what's the temp, what's the relative humidity, and then I can determine for you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll have them reach out and we can connect anybody that has any more
Absolutely.
questions for
Yeah.
sure.
Love talking to people in the field.
Oh,
It's the
great.
best part of my job.
I love that. I'd love to hear it. All right, Andy.
Yeah,
Well, that is it for questions for today. Like I said, you did a really good job
yeah,
of running through that presentation in an in-depth way while keeping it nice and short
sure.
and sweet. So thank you for
Yeah,
your time today. Of course, we want to thank PIP Global Safety for allowing you to be here and all of the great work that you do. And of course, I want to thank all of our dedicated safety professionals because without them, none of this would be possible. So again, thanks again. Take care, stay safe, and as Andy said, stay curious. It'll keep you safe.